Have you ever felt a moment when everything inside you shifted, subtly, quietly, yet profoundly? A moment when the world suddenly seemed different, and you sensed that life had depths you had never touched before? That feeling is often the beginning of spiritual awakening. It does not arrive with fireworks. It comes like a soft whisper at first, a tug in the soul, a nudge that tells you there is more to existence than the surface-level roles you've been playing. A spiritual awakening is never a straight line. It spirals, bends, loops, expands, much like the double helix of DNA. Some people revisit stages again and again. Others jump forward unexpectedly. Each journey is personal, tailor-made, and perfectly aligned to what your soul needs. And yet, despite the uniqueness of every path, there are certain stages that appear in nearly everyone's awakening. In this series, we'll explore the 6 stages of spiritual awakening, what they mean, how they feel, and how to recognize which stage you might be experiencing. Many people begin without even knowing they've entered the path. They simply feel the stirrings of restlessness, the sense that something inside is shifting. Old belief systems start to feel too tight. Past identities no longer fit. Life begins to feel less like a predictable routine and more like a mystery waiting to unfold. This initial sense of awakening often reveals a deeper truth. You are not who you thought you were. You are not the story you've been repeating, and the world is far more connected and alive than it appears on the surface. Understanding the path ahead isn't about labeling yourself. It's about gaining clarity so you can move through each phase with awareness rather than confusion or fear. Awakening can bring beauty, but it can also bring discomfort. Knowing where you are on the journey can help you embrace it with trust. Let us begin by exploring the first true stage of the awakening process. Unconsciousness, the state of living entirely through the ego.
The first stage of spiritual awakening is a life lived entirely under the influence of the ego. At this point, a person is deeply identified with their thoughts, emotions, and personal stories. They believe these inner movements define who they are. There is no separation between the self and the mind, no awareness of the quiet, observing presence beneath the noise. In this state, life feels reactive rather than intentional. A person may move through the world on autopilot, shaped by past wounds, subconscious programs, and societal conditioning. The ego grips tightly, creating defensiveness, anger, and a constant need to protect one's identity. Challenges feel personal. Trauma seems like proof that life cannot be controlled. Things happen to you, and you have little sense of agency over your inner experience. Because everything is filtered through personal biases, seeing others clearly becomes difficult. Each interaction is shaped by projection, a reflection of inner fears, wounds, and expectations. The lines between reality and interpretation blur. Instead of connecting with the world, the individual becomes trapped inside their own narrative. This unconscious stage is not a failure. It is simply the starting point, the cocoon before transformation. Nearly everyone begins life this way. The ego serves its purpose. It keeps you safe, helps you form identity, and gives structure to your early experiences. But eventually, the soul begins to crave something deeper. The constant emotional turbulence becomes exhausting. The narratives no longer satisfy. A small voice inside whispers, "There is more." The shift from unconsciousness to awakening begins the moment you realize you are not your ego. This flicker of awareness marks the first crack in the shell. From here, the journey expands into something much deeper, something that will eventually unravel the false self entirely. And that unraveling leads to the next stage, ego death.
The moment ego death begins, everything you once believed about yourself starts to crumble. It is one of the most transformative and often one of the most disorienting stages of awakening. Ego death is not a literal death, but the dissolution of your old identity, the idea of who you think you are. Labels that once felt solid, your role, your status, your beliefs, your past, your failures, your strengths, suddenly become fragile. The stories you repeated to define yourself begin to fall apart. The structures you once relied on no longer make sense. It can feel like standing in an empty room after all the furniture has been removed. During ego death, a strange emptiness emerges. It can feel unsettling, but this emptiness is not a void. It is space. Space for the truth to rise. Space for the deeper self to speak. In this quiet, the observer begins to appear, the silent witness within you that is not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your fears. You begin to realize, I am not the story. I am the awareness behind it. This realization is both liberating and destabilizing. All the concepts about life, religion, God, success, identity, everything feels wiped clean. This blank slate can bring moments of peace mixed with confusion. You may feel detached from the world, unsure of who you are becoming. But ego death is not the end, it is the gateway. Once the old identity dissolves, the soul begins searching for something deeper, something real, something that cannot collapse. This search becomes the next stage of awakening.
After the collapse of the old identity, the soul begins to hunger for truth. This stage is marked by deep curiosity and a longing to understand existence at its core. The search isn't just intellectual, it is emotional, spiritual, and instinctive. You begin asking questions you never asked before. Who am I beneath my thoughts? Why was I born? What is the purpose of this existence? What is God or the source of creation? During the stage, people often dive into spiritual teachings, read books, watch videos, and seek guidance from teachers, mystics, or philosophers. They explore meditation, prayer, contemplation, journaling, or channeling. Every insight brings relief, a sense of recognition, as if you're remembering something you've always known. This stage can be exhilarating. Ideas resonate on a deeper level. Synchronicities appear. Certain teachings feel like they were meant specifically for you. You feel your awareness expanding beyond the limits of the ego. But the stage can also be overwhelming. With so many ideas and teachings, the mind may try to grasp everything at once. Still, the search is necessary. It is the bridge between ego dissolution and the emergence of your true self. Through exploring, questioning, and reflecting, you begin uncovering pieces of authenticity that had been buried beneath conditioning for years. And soon, that authenticity rises fully into the light.
At this stage, pretending becomes impossible. The masks you've worn for years, sometimes without realizing it, begin to crumble. You can no longer force yourself into roles, relationships, or identities that feel false. The soul starts revealing who you truly are beneath all the layers of societal conditioning. This stage feels like returning to the self you were as a child, pure, intuitive, curious, and unfiltered. You begin gravitating toward things that nourish your spirit rather than things that simply maintain an image. People who drain your energy drift away. Careers that no longer align lose their grip. Your intuition becomes louder, guiding you toward what feels authentic and away from what feels forced.
As the authentic self emerges, old emotional wounds often surface. You may experience emotional highs and lows, vivid dreams, and moments of intense clarity. Your body may undergo subtle energetic changes, sometimes called ascension symptoms, as it adjusts to a higher level of awareness. This stage often brings major life changes. Some people change careers, leave relationships, move to new places, or restructure their lives completely. It can feel chaotic, but the chaos is cleansing, like a storm clearing space for sunlight. When the authentic self stabilizes, a new kind of life begins. Not a life built on survival or expectation, but one built on alignment. And that leads to the final stage.
This final stage is where everything integrates. The mind, body, soul, emotions, intuition all begin to work in harmony. You no longer fight yourself. You no longer betray yourself to please others. You live in alignment with who you truly are. In this phase, self-compassion becomes natural. You embrace your limitations, accept your imperfections, and treat yourself with the gentleness you once wished others would give you. As your relationship with yourself heals, your relationship with others transforms as well. You begin seeing people with more empathy, understanding that everyone is carrying their own wounds, moving through their own journey at their own pace. Alignment also expands beyond human relationships. You feel connected to nature, the earth, animals, the sky, even objects around you. Interconnectedness becomes a lived experience rather than a philosophical idea. You recognize that everything is energy, everything is consciousness, and everything is part of the same whole. You also develop the ability to embrace both the light and the shadow aspects of life without judgment. The world no longer feels like something happening to you, but something unfolding with you. Living in alignment does not mean life becomes perfect. It means you become anchored, rooted in your authentic self, balanced in your emotions, and open to the flow of existence. This is where the journey transforms from surviving to living consciously and loving fully. If this awakening journey resonates with you, share it with someone who might need it, and feel free to leave your reflections and experiences below.